this kind of star once you put it at that distance. So that means even though the normal stars, I mean initially we thought that the stars corresponding to 40,000 degree Kelvin will not give any X-ray. That is not really correct, because you see even in this region you do see X-rays from sun because of the corona, solar flares, etc. But these kind of X-rays will not be visible from any of the stars. But I mean, this is EO1, High Energy Astrophysical Observatory. This is actually one of the old satellite which was dedicated to X-ray astronomy in late 1970s or early 80s. It just simply surveyed the entire sky. You just look at various points and see from where you are getting X-rays. There are so many spots, and these are well localized. I mean, it's not open. So this is one particular spot from where you will see very large amount of X-rays, and the size of the circles are sort of proportional to intensity. So you see there are many stars, particularly. Okay, this is in galactic coordinate. You know coordinate systems. You know what galactic coordinates. So if you see the galactic disk will be along this zero latitude, and then if you go away from the galactic disk, you will see this is called the galactic halo. So there are many sources above and below galactic disk. Now this may not be actually within our galaxy. This could be outside galaxy also. But the point is that if you simply plot what are the locations from where you are getting X-ray, you see will be more than few hundred. This was about 30 years old. You see few hundred X-ray sources, and some of them are really, really bright. I mean, okay, another issue is how do you actually measure the distance. Distance measurement in astronomy is again a completely different, huge subject on its own. In normal optical, if you have some optical light from star, it is still a little easier. In X-rays, it's even more difficult. So, to know the distance of this star X-ray sources is sort of quite difficult task. Many of them are known now, but even if you put these at a quite far away distance, the total amount of energy emitted in X-ray is a way much beyond than what you expect from, let's say, a black body radiation of 40,000 degree or even maybe more than that. So, how do you generate so much X-rays? That is the basic question. So again, that means these must be having some thing which is sort of unknown so far for our typical laboratory physics, which we study maybe up to high school or BSc or MSc level. So then what are these objects? I will not go into too much detail here, because that I will keep it to your sort of more interactive part. So that's where it comes that why X-ray astronomy is so interesting. One thing is, all these sources must involve, again as you mentioned, the really extreme conditions of temperature, gravity, magnetic field, electric field, and what are these possible sources? You have something called X-ray binaries. Okay, I'll stop here. We'll discuss more, because I won't show anything any more pictures here, because anything more than that will become slightly more technical. So I have not put any slides here, but we can discuss. X-ray binaries. Okay, you know about binary stars. There are various stars. Even if you see, there are a lot of naked eye binary stars. When some stars which you see there, not all the stars which you see close by are binary stars, but some are real binary in the sense that they are moving around common center of mass. So if one of the star, by whatever reason, become something like this BH is a black hole or a neutron star, or it's called white dwarf, then that system it's known as, okay, then it is not known, but basically then it will start emitting X-rays, so that's why it's called X-ray binary. Pulsar is again another, like for example, it's a mostly neutron star, but it's isolated neutron star, I mean, it doesn't have any binary companion. Supernova is a process. Okay, this is actually a supernova. Okay, now I will say these are only conceptual pictures. I mean, you don't see anything like that, but this is actual observation, and this is observation of a supernova. It's called Kepler supernova. You know Kepler. Johannes Kepler. Kepler observed supernova in 16 what actually, 1659 or 49 something. So after this means last 400 years, how this has evolved. So this is actually, I mean, you can see that the distance is now relatively well known. The extent is well known. So how powerful should be the explosion so that it drives our matter in such a huge speed that in just 400 years in astronomical time scale is very small. It's nothing. Astronomical time scales are maybe millions of years, billions of years. So just in 400 years, it will expand such a huge mass to a large distances so that even you can see result from space. These are actual telescope observations. This is called, here I will show it. So this is a real observation what I am saying. So it involves sort of this kind of extreme condition. It requires a lot of energy and these things. Then there is something called gamma ray burst, GRB. You know? You are aware about gamma ray burst? What are this? No. Okay, I mean it is called, it's gamma ray burst. Gamma rays means again it's a sort of X-ray. It's like a high energy X-ray. So you see once in a while, suddenly in some space somewhere, you will see some huge burst of gamma rays. X-rays, it will last for maybe at the most few minutes, not more than that. Within a few minutes, something will suddenly splash and go down in a couple of minutes. These are discovered maybe in the, I think, late 60s or early 70s. But till very recently, there was really no idea about what these are. And even now, if you see, there are various models and there are various theories, but it's difficult to 100% say that, difficult to say that with 100% confidence that these are this kind of sources. So, because you can see that something is just simply coming, completely random direction, random time, some burst occurs and it fades away after that. So it's very difficult to study this, but then it is very important because the total amount of energy emitted in a typical span of maybe few minutes or 10 minutes is equivalent to sort of the entire rest mass energy of the sun. So these are really huge explosions. This was an interesting story. I mean, GRB, as I said, was actually detected long time back in late 50s or late 60s or early 70s. But they, in the proper science regime, it came much later. And the reason was more of a sort of our politics. Because these were detected by not normal astronomical observatories. These were detected by so-called spy satellites. In the 60s and 70s were sort of Cold War era between the United States and Russia, and they were doing a lot of nuclear explosion, nuclear bomb testing and all those things. So both these countries, they had detectors to see, because nobody will tell that we have this new type of bomb which is giving so much energy and all. So they had put this kind of detectors in space to see whether United States mission will orbit in space. We will see whether there is any explosion from this Russian region. Similarly, Russian satellites will see. They had detected this kind of explosions for a long time, and they were not really sure whether they are coming from Earth or whether they are coming from sky. After quite some time, maybe more than 10-12 years, finally, this military people, they realized that no, these are not related to any phenomenon on Earth. They are actually coming from outside Earth. And then it became in sort of mainstream astronomy. And for quite some time, next 50 years or so, it was still not known whether they are within our solar system, just close to our solar system, within our galaxy or not. Now it is sort of almost established, not almost, 100% established. These are not even within our galaxy. These are all far beyond our galaxy. I mean, these are real sort of cosmological sources with a distance measuring in hundreds of or thousands of megaparsec. So then that makes it even more interesting, because if something is some explosion is occurring at such a large distance, you really do not see anything. You should not see anything. But then how come you are getting so much bright X-rays? AGNs. Have you heard anybody has heard about this? No. Active galactic nuclei. No. So our galaxy. Yeah, galaxy, you have sort of there are various types of galaxy. Spiral galaxies. Ours is a spiral galaxy, where stars are rotating around center of our galaxy in the various spiral arms. but basically it's a flat, so it's a disk. There are some kind of galaxies that are known as elliptical galaxies. So instead of just a flat spiral arm, it's sort of two scissors put together, the elliptical galaxy. At the center of the galaxies, you generally believe, okay, I do not have that slide, somewhere I had it, maybe I put it here. There is a black hole at the center of the galaxy. Why the black hole should be there is a separate, because that's basically more of an observational fact. Because you see, you know the basic Kepler's law. It governs how a particular mass rotates around common center of mass. So based on the velocity, based on the distance, you can calculate. Suppose if you know the mass of one particular object, you know its orbit, you can infer the total mass around which it is rotating. So if you, even in our own galaxy, if you measure some of the stars which are very close to the center of our galaxy, you see that the velocity is so large that it's not possible to confine them unless you have some huge mass. Huge means how huge? It's of the order of maybe 10 million sun. 10 million sun confined in a very small location, which is given by the observations. I mean, there is no other form possible unless black hole. So these are sort of observational evidence for a black hole in our galaxy. Same evidences are there for all. So now it is sort of almost confirmed. It's believed that all galaxies will have black holes at their center. But all black holes are not sort of, all galaxies are not called active nuclei. Galactic nuclei are there, black holes are there. Some of the galaxies, they show a huge emission from the center itself. Those are called active galactic nuclei. There are various reasons why a particular galaxy is active or not active and all those things. There are different issues. Then there is something called microquasar. Okay, you know quasar, have you heard? So quasar is basically nothing but one form of AGN, one form of active galactic nuclei. So there are different types of active galactic nuclei, and the difference comes from just the angle by which you know. See, if you have, let's say, galactic disk or more non-galactic activity, of course something called accretion disk.